Democrats in his most recent campaign. Congressman, good morning. How are you?
How are you, Frank?
I'm well. What's your reaction to all this politicization of the tragedy in Arizona and a sheriff now citing Rush Limbaugh as the cause of it?
Well, it's inappropriate, obviously, and in some ways it seems sadly inevitable. In the face of such a tragedy, people always try to figure out some type of logical reason for why a deranged person will do what they do, and it's something that you, by definition, can't accomplish. So I would hope that the politicization of this matter stops. I know that the public wants it to stop, and they want everybody to focus on what they're supposed to do. They want us to focus on praying for the families. They want us to focus on making sure that when we get back to work, we actually accomplish things on behalf of the American people. And they want to make sure that what we don't do is have some type of reaction that leads us to see this tragedy as a way to infringe on civil liberties.
Well, and one of those civil liberties is in the Second Amendment, our right to bear arms. And, the left is very much opposed to that. And it's interesting, you had this situation where had someone in that crowd been carrying a weapon, they might have stopped this man before people were killed. There's every reason to think that could have happened. But it didn't because apparently nobody had a gun there.
Well, and they're also, what I think a lot of people are very much surprised to see, so willing to try to find ways to curtail speech. As you know, Frank, we live in a communications revolution. The technology to convey one's free speech has increased, and that has intensified people's ability to have their views put into the public square, and it's intensified, and it's increased individuals' ability to be exposed to it. So what we shouldn't do is infringe speech or the Second Amendment or any constitutional right because of technological changes. The proper role of government is to make sure that our rights are guaranteed. And despite technological changes, despite changes in the way that culture may go, we have to make sure that the government, which was established to our rights, protects them. And instead of trying to curtail them because we don't like what is said, or utilizing a tragedy to try to somehow get across an insularity, to create an insularity for elected officials from their constituents, what we have to do is find ways to preserve and protect that in the face of the change.
Well, but the efforts to limit speech are very one-sided, aren't they? I don't hear these Democrats concerned about a Keith Olbermann or a Chris Matthews or any of the array of much less successful left-wing talk show hosts who have used much more incendiary speech than Rush Limbaugh ever dreamt of using.
Well, I think that's part of it. The place for the determination of what is overheated rhetoric is the public square. It's not politicians, it's not pundits in their legislation or attempts to curtail what's put out on the airways through the Fairness Doctrine.
Which is why our founders guaranteed our right to free speech in the First Amendment.
Right, and we've always had historically fluctuating political debates in terms of their intensity. But what's the only thing that has changed is the ability to do it. I mean, 24/7 you can see views and opinions, but that's why you have an off button. That's why you have your own ability to get your views out. I don't think that this is one of the worst things that could come out of this, other than the obvious loss of life and the tragedy and pain that the victims and their families are feeling, would be to have people come back and to actually exacerbate what this lunatic has taken from us and having our rights infringed.
During the last election, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee I mentioned put out an interactive map with targets on it, and you were one of those targets. And they openly said we're targeting Republicans. The site includes the interactive map, information about, and I'm quoting now from their release, information about targeted Republicans, and a petition where people can voice their outrage about Republican opposition. Not their disagreement, their outrage to you. And they clearly said you were a target. Do you ever feel threatened by any of that?
No, because in the common political vernacular, it is rough. There is that type of metaphoric imagery that's put forward, but it's occurred for decades. And so I did not feel anything other than a political challenge from it, and that was my response to it. When you think about it, Frank, again, you're dealing with an individual in the Arizona and the Tucson tragedy that had said the government was committing mind control by using grammar. That doesn't sound like an issue that we've debated in a heated way any time in the last couple of years. It certainly doesn't sound like somebody who's putting much stock in rhetoric from either side of the aisle. And in fact, it just sounds like so much of the senselessness that we've seen in our lifetimes, be it the assassination the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan, or be it the murder of John Lennon.
Well, indeed, and I also don't recall the issue of mind control versus via grammar being discussed in great detail for any length of time. In fact, no length of time on Rush Limbaugh's show.
Right, and that's what I think that, again, you have to trust the American people, and the American people are very good, decent people. What they're looking at is they're looking at a tragedy, and they see the evil that was committed. And they also look at the acts of courage of the people that were there in protecting each other and disarming the alleged shooter. And that's what makes us a great country, is the fact that despite tragedy, we come together and we transcend it. And I don't think that that's going to be any different here. And I think that the public, when the time comes, is going to look back and say, well, who acted responsibly and who didn't? And I think that people who are trying to make political points out of this are going to be held in low regard.
All right, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much. I take it you don't believe that the overheated rhetoric over this is going to lead to any effort within the halls of Congress to change the rules of speech in our country or the Second Amendment either.
I would hope not. As you know, Frank, when the Iraq War was a very heated issue, when Move On and others were protesting me and my fellow Republicans, whenever I was asked, I would say they have a right to free speech. And I would hope that my colleagues would remember that we are their servants and we are there to guarantee rights, not to curtail them.
All right. Are you going to change your security at all when you go back to the district or as you move about?
Since 9/11, even before I got to Congress, Frank, members have known that we've lived in an age for some time where any lunatic could try to do something like this. And we've also had the added threat that you have an organized enemy that would like to kill any American citizen that they can to make a political point. So I would think reasonable and prudent precautions have been put in place and will continue. And the one thing we all know, whether we're a member of Congress or whether we're a senior citizen or whether we're a student, is that life cannot be 100% guaranteed. You have to live your life. If you live in fear, what you'll find is you won't have a life worth living. We
appreciate the time. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Frank.
As always, Congressman Thaddeus McCotter here on The Beckman Show on WJR.